switching over to offense, you bring in Sincere Brown and Hakeem Williams. Hakeem Williams, former 5-star wide receiver, played at Florida State. Just things didn't work out for him. But at the same time, he's still a big physical wide receiver. And you add in with Sincere Brown, who some people shunned your boy when I talked about him because he came from a small school. But I don't think y'all understand, man. Size, you can't teach size. And if you have the ability to get out there at 6'5" and move like he does at 200 pounds, he played at South Florida initially, right? He's at both.
Yeah.
He needed to get his together, basically. He got it together at Campbell, and it's a big wide receiver coming from Florida, man. The wide receiver room is going to intrigue me the most on this roster this year. I'm going to ask you what position intrigues you the most as far as going forward. But wide receiver intrigues me the most because last year you had all those dudes that got drafted, and so you had more attention. Guys like, okay, wait, you took a LeJontay Wester, who was a top dude at what Vandy. No, Shepard was Vandy. He was LA Tech. You're like, you bring him in, and then you end up getting him drafted because everybody's watching everything he does. Can you do that for me while still having a Draylon Miller and an Amarion Miller ready to play? That to me is going to be the most interesting because Joseph Williams is highly rated. A lot of people liked him from Tulsa. And I watched him play in Tulsa a little bit. Kid's good. He's young. And that's the best part. He's a true sophomore. He's going to be here for him and the Miller boys together for the next 2 years. Stupid. But Hakeem being a junior, he has a chance of making himself truly shine. So, of course, I'm hoping him and the quarterbacks are working together. And then, like I said, Sincere being a senior, and he's gone after this year. Dog, this wide receiver room is going to be more fun than people understand, especially at the size, at 6'5" for both those dudes. What position jumps out to you this year, outside of quarterback, that's got a battle that you're like, I kind of want to see all these dudes play, but at the same time, Colorado ain't got no problem no matter who they play.
Man, I'm gonna ride with you on that one. I'm gonna go wide receiver room for a different reason. When I look at Joseph Williams, when I look at Hakeem Williams, when I look at Sincere Brown, when I look at the size they have, when you look at Amarion Miller, who has great size as well,
yeah,
I think about perimeter blocking. I think about springing a run. I think about when you run stretch. I think about when you run counter, and you've got these guys. So, and not only do you have big guys, you got big guys that can run. Let me tell you, this is what I'll go with. So Sincere Brown, the first time I saw him, I thought 4'5", and I got corrected so quickly. I had people hitting me up like, "Dudes, go watch him. Go watch him." I knew him from around the way. I knew him. He's from the crib. 4'3". So I'm gonna go with low 4'4" until I see the 4'3". But I'm telling you, like from the people that I've talked to, and I think Hakeem came from South Florida, right? Jimmy Horn was there. I think Jimmy Horn was there when he was there, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes. Sincere. Yeah, he was at South Florida with Horn. Exactly. Yeah.
So yep. And then LeJontay was at Florida Atlantic, I think. So when you look at guys,
Florida Atlantic, that's where I was wrong. Yeah.
If you think of guys who may have been at these mid-major schools, if you haven't realized it, the mid-major schools are now basically the 4-star factory for the transfer portal. You don't go like so now. These guys are basically counting. They're counting towards the roster as what 4 stars used to be. Because now you give me a guy who's playing 6A football in Georgia versus a guy who's already played against maybe a couple of Power 5 teams in the season. Give me the guy who's producing against Power 5 talent. Or even if it's Group of 5 talent, you've got the majority of a Group of 5 beats a high school team every day of the week. So where we are now is when you look at the amount of talent that they've brought in, even with Sincere Brown, the physicality, how the maturity, and being able to say, I've done it before, and you want them to go stalk block on the outside, that's what I'm looking forward to, is the ability to have guys that can do more on the outside. Like last year, the biggest guy that you would have in the game probably would be Will Shepard, because you got to play with LeJontay, you got to play Jimmy Horn, you got to play Trav. Well, now you can run out a lineup of Hakeem, Joseph Williams, Sincere Brown, and Omarion Miller. That's your 4 wide, and say, you know what? We're going to run a little outside zone out of shotgun or RPO. What's a corner going to do when you got to respect all of their speed And I have to say, you know what? I got to get off of his block on the outside. So now I'm looking at the wide receiver room because of the physicality that they brought in and the ability for them to be able to block on the perimeter.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm looking at too. That's huge. I didn't even think about it that way. And you make a good point because all those dudes are big. Like I'm looking at the wide receivers on this roster. All of these dudes are huge. So you put two big 6'5" dudes out there, a couple of 6'2", 200-pounders, by the way, 6'1" and 6'2", 200-pounders. All these dudes are legit 200 pounds. They're not under that. They're legit. Joseph is probably the only one I would think is probably underneath it, but the rest of them are definitely 200 pounds because they look it. They look thick. They're like big dudes. Blocking for the run game and being able to spring the running backs, that's going to be a game changer for what Colorado needs to do anyway. I mean, Prime talked about that at Media Days. They need to establish a run this year because you don't have dudes to save you. Now, granted, you talked about this earlier before. K-Salt's already ran for 1,000 yards in a season. Technically, your quarterback can spring himself and get out there and do some crazy stuff. I don't know about Juju yet. I need to give him about a year of understanding how fast these dudes can move and hit you for him to realize, oh, this is when I need to slide. This is when I need to go out, which he may already know. He may already figured it out in practice. They may have put a little test to him, run up on him, and he's just like, oh, shoot. Okay, be smart. Be smart. Don't get leveled next time. But that is a big one. Being able to block is going to be huge. And this offensive line, jump into that.